I saw him standing there, heart did a flip. Eyes like the ocean, I couldn't resist. He don't even know what he does to me. One smile and my world starts to sing. I act cool, like I'm fine, but my chest is out of line. I don't wanna play pretend. Boy, you got me again. I love that boy, can't lie no more. Every glance I'm falling for. I love that boy, don't need no words. Just his name and my heart hurts. Ooh, I love that boy.
Julian Hayes was a lonely man with nothing in life besides writing his web novel, Rewind and Reign of the Star-Crossed. After spending hours obsessing over a chapter, Julian finally left his apartment to get some fresh air. Coffee in hand, muffin in the other, he took a step into the street, and got hit by a truck. Everything went black. When he came to, he was in a lavish bedroom drenched in deep tones and pearly white accents. Confused, Julian soon realized he'd been transported into his own novel. As the character he hated most, the Prince of the Moon. A misunderstood figure with social anxiety and a cold reputation, the Prince of the Moon, whom Julian had, for some reason, named after himself, was fated to die at the hands of Verreur in a tragic misunderstanding over Charlotte. Desperate to survive, Julian resolves to stay out of their way entirely. Let Verreur and Charlotte fall in love in peace, he'll just enjoy the perks of palace life. But a month later, something strange happens. Verreur isn't pursuing Charlotte. He's fixated on Julian. One day, the Sun Prince storms in, sword drawn, eyes burning. Bastard! Why are you avoiding me and Charlotte? Weren't we supposed to be rivals? How am I supposed to fall for her if you won't give me a reason to fight for her? Julian's survival plan is falling apart. Worse, Verreur might not be playing by the script anymore. Julian looked at him like it was obvious. Then find another rival? Verreur's grip on the sword tightened. The moonlight spilled over the ornate fastening of his uniform, casting a silver sheen across his sharp jawline and intense gaze. His voice dropped, low and sharp, not quite angry, but something more dangerous. You're the Prince of the Moon. My rival isn't supposed to be just anyone. He took a step closer. You're the only one who ever stood in my way. The only one who could understand what it meant to fight for her. And now you act like none of it matters. Verreur's eyes flickered, searching Julian's face. What happened to you? There was a strange flicker in his voice, confusion, and something else. Let me tell you this straight since you are here, and to avoid misunderstanding in the future. I'm not after Charlotte anymore. So, she is all yours now. Julian said, his voice steady, gaze as still as water. Verreur froze, staring as if Julian had just blasphemed against the gods. You're giving up on Charlotte? He asked, his voice sharp with disbelief. Just like that? You used to say she was everything, your guiding star, your reason for standing against me. And now what? You walk away like none of it meant anything. He was glaring now, but his fists, still clenched, were trembling slightly. Listen, what I said is the truth, I truly am not interested in Charlotte anymore. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other matters to attend. Julian said with a steady voice, as he turned and left without a second glance. Verreur stood frozen as Julian walked away, his cloak trailing like a fading shadow. Not interested in Charlotte anymore, The words rang hollow in Varura's mind. They didn't feel right. Not coming from him. His fingers twitched at his side, itching to grip his sword, not to fight, but to demand answers. This wasn't the rival he remembered. Something had changed. Varura's jaw tightened. If you think I'll let you walk away that easily. Julian Hayes. Then you're more foolish than I thought. Julian went back to his study and closed the door behind him. What was that? He sighed, resting his hands on his hips. I thought Varura would be glad to see Julian back off. What kind of reaction was that? He shook his head. Then again, I guess I forgot how dramatic he can be. Julian shivered. Varura was the polar opposite of him, loud, intense, and impossible to ignore. The Prince of the Moon had been based on himself, so fiery types like Varura. The absolute last people he wanted to deal with. With a sigh, Julian stepped away from the door, picked up the book he'd left earlier, and settled back into his seat to continue reading. Varura sat in his chambers, staring blankly at the hearth. His tea had gone cold. He hadn't taken a single sip. His thoughts looped in circles, tangled around the same image. Julian Hayes walking away. Uncaring. Uninterested. It didn't make sense. It couldn't make sense. The door creaked. His aide, Kale, stepped in quietly. Your Highness, is something troubling you? Varura didn't answer at first. Then, slowly, he said. Julian Hayes gave up on Charlotte. Kale blinked. He what? Said he's no longer interested, like he was reading a report. Then he just turned and walked off. Kale frowned and stepped closer. Forgive me, but, what if it's a ruse, he said carefully. The Prince of the Moon is a calculating man. What if he's pretending to step back? Gaining your trust, lulling you into a false sense of security? Varura's gaze sharpened. The idea curled around his mind like smoke. A trick. He sat upright, tension crackling down his spine. That bastard, he muttered, his eyes narrowing. So that's your game. A twisted grin tugged at his lips. Well then, Julian Hayes, let's see how long you can keep pretending. Documents lay scattered across the table, but Varura wasn't looking at them. His arms were crossed, his gaze fixed and narrow as he addressed the hooded figure kneeling before him. Follow him, Varura said, his voice low and deliberate. The Prince of the Moon. Every hour. Every movement. I want to know what he eats, who he speaks to, even if it's the castle cat. The spy hesitated. With respect, Your Highness, he spends most of his time in the library. Exactly, Varura snapped. That's what's suspicious. No one changes overnight like that. He's planning something. He used to flare like fire at the mention of Charlotte. Now he talks like a monk. The room went still. Varura muttered, more to himself than anyone else. No one lets go that easily. Then, louder, colder. Go. Watch him, and report everything. Julian was deep in thought, mid-sip of his fourth cup of tea and finally reaching the good part of the book where the protagonist confronts his fears with Jasmine Oolong, when the door flew open. Julian nearly spilled his tea. Varura stepped in uninvited, eyes sharp as blades. Strange, he said, scanning the room with a frown. For someone who claims disinterest, you're awfully busy behind closed doors. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, gaze flicking between the book and the teacup. What are you planning, Julian Hayes? Julian stared at him, utterly confused. I'm reading. Varura's brow twitched. Reading, Varura repeated slowly, as if the word was foreign. His eyes glanced at the open book. Practical tea brewing for troubled minds. Varura looked back up, dead serious. He folded his arms. Tell me then, who's troubled? And why does your mind need calming? His tone was sharp, almost accusatory. What are you trying to soothe, Julian Hayes? Julian closed his eyes and took a slow breath. It was his book. They were his characters. He couldn't just them, right? He calmly smothered the murdero, chaotic thoughts bubbling up in his mind. Prince of the Sun, Verur Caerio, Julian said, voice as smooth as glass. I have no idea what you're talking about, or what you're trying to do, but I do hope you'll have the courtesy to replace the lock on the door you just destroyed. Thanks. He offered a polite, icy expression before returning to his book. Verur blinked. Then his eyes slid toward the splintered doorframe, pausing for a moment. I'll pay for that, he muttered, almost like an afterthought. But his attention snapped back to Julian immediately. Don't try to deflect with manners. I know you're hiding something. Where's the fire, he murmured, a dare. Where's the Julian Hayes who called me a sunburned idiot and threatened to outshine me and win Charlotte's heart? A smirk tugged at his lips. You weren't boring back then. Julian looked up from his book, on the verge of snapping, clinging to the last thread of patience. Verur watched him. Watched the twitch at the corner of Julian's eye, the telltale sign of a man seconds away from violence. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Then, suddenly, he straightened. His tone shifted with calculated ease. Anyway. There's another reason I'm here. The Council has approved a joint diplomatic tour. A public show of goodwill between our kingdoms. His smile returned, sharp, smug, and designed to ruin people's day. And since we represent our thrones, we'll be traveling together. Then, he turned, finally stepping toward the exit. We leave in a few days, he said over his shoulder. The Prince of the Moon stared at the shattered door. The silence stretched, before a long sigh escaped his lips. Why me?